Presumably he has medical duties to attend to. Jinchi looked at Tianyu coldly. Damn, she knew it hadn't been a good idea to let Tianyu get involved. She glowered at him. He, however, stepped forward with an innocent look. My humble apologies, he said as elaborately as possible. I begged her to let me accompany her. Maomao here is far more accomplished in the mixing of medicines than I am, and has been graciously teaching me a great deal. When she said that she wished to examine the courtyard, I simply assumed she meant she was going to hunt for herbs and other ingredients and followed along. Why, you little, he was acting exceptionally polite and wasn't even getting her name wrong. Maomao thought Jinchi's eyes glinted even more brightly. Oh, I see. I think I understand what's going on here. You believe this bird is the alleged spirit? Yes, sir. Anyway, that's half the answer. Maomao looked at the owl. This place is too public, Jinchi said. Perhaps I could ask you a few more questions somewhere else. Certainly, sir, Maomao said, and off they went. Chapter 12, The Fatauman, Part 2. Jinchi studied the animal in the cage. I've never seen a bird with a face quite like this before. I never imagined it. They had moved to Jinchi's chambers. He sat in the place of honor with Sugen, Taomei and Chu around him. Basin was there as his bodyguard. Maomao suspected Basin's older brother Baryu was nearby as well, but she didn't expect to actually see him. Gaeshan was absent. She didn't know if he was off duty or on some other errand. For some reason, Tianyu was there too, smiling away. Pretend you have work or something and get out of here, Maomao thought at him. But if it seemed like something interesting was going on, Tianyu would make it his business to be a part of it. What made you think a bird like this might be the true identity of our Fatauman? Jinchi asked. Maomao closed her eyes. She would have to be careful not to give Tianyu any information that might tip him off. Sir, the first thing that struck me as odd was the word mask. People said they had seen it by the tree or on the roof of the building, so my first thought was to look near the tree. My encounter with the alleged spirit also took the form of a mask. Chu had noticed the tree as well. Maomao's investigation had turned up bird droppings. These were not those of a small bird, but rather a fairly large carnivorous one. I've seen small birds flying through the house during the day, so it occurred to me that if there was a predator around, they might well be nocturnal. So that was when you realized there was a bird behind these apparitions. How did you prove it? Once I knew about this bird, sir, it was a fairly simple guess. I'd never seen one myself, but I had heard of birds with faces that look like masks. There was a picture of one in the Encyclopedia of Animals that I got at the apothecary's shop where I used to work. I admit I didn't pay it much mind the first time I saw it. She trusted Jinchi would know which encyclopedia she was referring to. It was one of the books brought out of the Shiklan fortress. He was keeping it at the moment. If he had brought it to the western capital, he might be able to look at it. An encyclopedia, Jinchi said with a glance at Taomei. She brought out an armload of books, and Chu helped to carry those she couldn't fit in her arms. The books included the Encyclopedia of Medicinal Herbs, along with those about insects and animals. Those were Shiklan books, but there were several others Maomao had never seen. Guess he didn't waste any time digging them out after yesterday. She was impressed by how quickly he worked. This is what we would call, appropriately enough, a masked owl, she said. No normal owl would give the impression of a flying mask, and this one has an unusual coloration. This owl boasted feathers so dark they were almost black. Usually even birds with dark-coloured bodies had white feathers on their bellies, but other than its face, this one was a uniform dark brown. It would be easy to miss it in the night. A masked owl, that's this, isn't it? Jinchi asked, opening to the relevant page of the Shiklan encyclopedia. Colouring aside, the unsettling mask-like face certainly matched the bird in the cage. Tianyu raised his hand. May I ask something? Go ahead. Jinchi sounded somewhat more commanding than usual. I agree it looks like it's wearing a mask, but doesn't it seem a bit small? It's a little undersized to be a person's face. Tianyu peered into the cage at the bird. The animal wasn't fighting. In fact, it looked sleepy. If they put some nesting material in with it, maybe it would doze off. The human eye is unreliable, Maomao replied. It might be only the white part you'd see floating in midair, but I think it would look bigger than it is. Then Maomao took a piece of paper from the folds of her robe. She was looking for writing utensils when Chu took some out and offered them to her. She was quite nimble, that was for sure. She hadn't noticed the annoyed looks from Basin, who had almost let the bird escape. Maomao made 4 dots on the paper, right where a person's eyes, mouth and nose would be. She held it up for Jinchi and Tianyu. People will perceive anything as a human face as long as the dots are in the right place. It's like how we sometimes see faces in the knots of wooden pillars. So now we know what the mysterious mask was, Tianyu said. He reached into the cage and poked the owl, which did not react much. Taomei appeared carrying a small dish of raw chicken meat. It seemed she was more generous with owls than with ducks. Maybe two predators knew each other. So the bird gets meat. Taomei picked up a piece of chicken with a pair of chopsticks and held it out. The owl promptly took it. It showed no aversion to food offered by humans. What about the head, though? You said you solved half the riddle. Does that mean you think the head is something else? Tianyu was no fool. He remembered exactly what Maomao had said, a mask and a head. What does that mean? Jinchi asked. Maomao began to explain, taking the chance to review everything she knew. Witnesses began reporting it about 2 months ago. At the time, some people reported a mask and some said they saw a head. But in the last 20 days or so, most witnesses have reported a head. What's more, they report it outside the mansion. In my case, I saw the mask but no head, so you think the mask and the head are different things. If this bird accounts for the mask, then what's the head? Jinchi asked. About that, Maomao glanced at Chu. Yes, whatever do you need? Is there something you want from Miss Chu? It's not you, is it, Miss Chu? Maomao considered the timeline. The head had been noticed about 20 days earlier, or right around the time Maomao and the others arrived in the western capital. One member of their party seemed especially likely to do unusual things. How could you, Miss Maomao? Hasn't Miss Chu been with you for the last several days? Maomao had to admit that was true. They had been working in the fields together. It was just a hypothesis, she said, but I feel like this owl has given me a big piece of the puzzle. As the owl ate its chicken, she looked at its leg. There she spotted a small, well-crafted metal ring. I don't think it will take us long at all to find out the truth about the head. We just have to set a little trap. She smiled at the owl with the unsettling face and gave it a pat on the head. The next day, Chu appeared at the medical office. Maomao had cleaned up from breakfast and was helping the quack make some medicines. She had looked at Jinchi's encyclopedia of herbs. This gave her an idea as to which of the specimens she'd collected might be useful. They were experimenting. Are you a prophet, Miss Maomao? Chu asked, blinking. I take it you caught the culprit. You weren't too rough with them, were you? What in the world are you two talking about? I'm so confused, said the quack, who was not part of this conversation. It seemed like a lot of work to explain things to him, so Maomao decided to just have him keep working on the medicines. She suspected he would make them tea when he was done. Chu needed no invitation to make herself at home. She sat in a chair and waited for the quack to bring her some sweets. The conversation with Maomao almost seemed secondary to her goal of treats. Don't worry, it was just like you said, Miss Maomao. We watched the owl's cage all night long. When the bird suddenly started making a ruckus, we searched the premises. It was the strangest thing. We found a woman dressed all in black and wearing a bizarre mask. Chu related all this with great good cheer while also grabbing a sip of the tea the quack doctor politely produced. The accompanying snacks were dried fruit, a very Western capitalesque treat. Really? Wow, who knew? Maomao said, a bit taken aback herself to find that her prediction had been so on the mark. So was this the person who was keeping the owl? Bingo! Chu formed a large circle with both arms, a gesture of confirmation. Maomao thought about the owl they'd caught. It was pretty obvious it was a domestic bird. The way it had something on its leg and wasn't worried about being in a cage or eating chicken that had already been cut up for it. She didn't think this was an animal she was just keeping temporarily. She's had it a long time. Ho ho, plus there's something that's been bothering me about the witness testimony. Specifically, there's a commonality between the reports of the mask, which started 2 months earlier, and the reports of the head, which date from 20 days ago. 2 months ago, wouldn't that be just about the time Empress Jayakai's infamous niece was about to leave for the capital? Oh, Chu said, evidently catching Maomao's drift. Suppose the owl was intended to be one of the offerings taken to the imperial city, but it somehow got away. Maomao said, Ho ho, you mean she was trying to catch it so she could have another chance to offer it to the imperial family now that a member has come all the way here? All right, but why the mask? Was she trying to hide her identity? Maomao had an idea about that, although it wasn't a clear or certain answer, just one of her guesses. Miss Maomao, Chu said. Miss Chu may act silly, but she's nobody's fool. She would understand that your opinion was just one possibility and would never accept it uncritically. It was Chu's roundabout way of saying spit it out already. Maomao saw little choice but to oblige. I suspect the mask and the black outfit are to make this person look more like the owl's mother. Chu cocked her head at that. Are you familiar with imprinting? Maomao asked. Oh yes, Miss Chu knows all about that. It means that when a bird hatches from its egg it thinks the first thing it sees is its mother. The same way that duck feels about my little brother-in-law. Yes, exactly. I think whoever raised the owl intended to return it to the wild, and wanted to make sure it didn't imprint on a human face. Judging by the owl's droppings, it was catching its own food, which meant it knew how to hunt. However, it can and will accept meat from a human hand, Maomao said. Domesticate an interesting-looking bird like that, and a rich person might buy it as a curiosity, or it could be given as an offering to the nobility. But its keeper didn't want it to end up that way, so she let it go, or maybe it escaped. This is only a hypothesis, remember. Maomao refused to speak with certainty. It was her bad luck, though, that the owl took up residence right in Master Jiakuo's annex. And when a member of the imperial family arrived to stay there, well, how terrible. Hypothesis, Maomao repeated. She realized the owl would be quicker to come to her if she dressed the way she had while she was raising it. Then when she caught it, she planned to release it somewhere far away, somewhere people would never find it. Hypothesis, sigh. Don't worry, I know, perhaps the keeper had used some kind of bird whistle. The owl had responded but hadn't come outside. Regardless of whether Maomao's guess was accurate, it did gain them one thing. The person in black is the owl's keeper, right? Maomao asked. Yes, indeed, Chu chirped. They grinned at each other. The quack, still out of the loop, was visibly intimidated by two people who looked to him like they were up to no good. If Maomao was right that this person had raised the bird from a fledgling, it would bring them close to solving one particular problem. Nyanjan, the former serf, had spoken of the Windreader tribe, and how the Yi clan had granted the tribe their protection. But I am betting they didn't earn the protection of a major clan by just ritually scratching in the dirt. There was also the question of how they had actually gotten rid of the insects they found. Maomao felt herself being led to one conclusion. The Windreaders had kept birds. As she had suggested to Jinchi, they might well have used the creatures to communicate. A fast and reliable means of carrying messages would have been very valuable. For starters, Maomao decided she wanted to meet this masked stranger. Chapter 13. The Windreader tribe. Chu led Maomao to where the suspect was being kept. Maomao could hear someone shouting, I told you already. This is all a big misunderstanding. The voice seemed a bit too strident to be a woman's, but when Maomao saw the suspect she understood. It's some kid, she said. The child was perhaps 10 years old with narrow eyes and lighter skin. This was more characteristic of a resident of Kaoru province than someone from the western capital. And although her features looked boyish, the long hair tied back behind her head suggested that this person was indeed a girl. In general, men of the western capital, even young boys, wore headscarves. Or they otherwise had their hair back in long braids. It was probably the mask and the long hair that caused her to be mistaken for a grown woman. I'm not just some kid, she said, puffing out her cheeks, which did not help her case. There in the room with the suspicious child were Gaoshun, Taomei, Basin, and another guard Maomao saw frequently, but whose name she didn't know. Maomao, Taomei called to her, narrowing her differently coloured eyes. Lady Taomei, why are you here? Maomao asked. She didn't seem like the kind of person who would normally be present at an interrogation, which wasn't to say she didn't seem like she would be very good at it. First they thought she was a woman, then they decided she was a little boy. After that, my second son announced that he would conduct the interrogation. Imagine what happened when he realized he was dealing with a girl child. Ah, said Maomao. She could imagine. Why is Master Gaoshun here then? Basin wasn't very good at dealing with women. How bad was he? Bad enough that people feared he would never succeed in leaving children for future generations. If you aren't concerned to be alone with Taomei and Basin, Zairomo, I can leave, Gaoshun said, though the furrow in his brow was deeper than usual. Maomao decided to go with it. Mother Basin groaned. He was performing an interrogation under the watchful eye of his parents. Talk about being overprotective. The girl was just a child. Was that still too much for Basin to handle? He seemed to cope with me and Miss Chu all right. She could understand when it came to Chu she was something of a rare person. Maybe Basin viewed Maomao as falling into the same category. It made her frown a little. Isn't the questioning going well? Do you want Miss Chu to handle things? Chu asked, approaching with a bright smile. No, Miss Chu, your help won't be necessary, said Taomei. But I'm so good with kids. Chu unspooled a string of flags from her sleeve. I'm sorry, but if I may ask, how far has the questioning gotten? Maomao said, breaking in between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law. The members of the Ma clan were all very characterful. Maomao feared getting left behind if she didn't take the initiative to insert herself into the conversation. Basin's duck could be seen sticking her bill into the room to get a look at what was going on, but she didn't actually come in. She was scared of Taomei. Pardon me. At the moment, this child, her name is Kulumu. Kulumu. It's written like this, Taomei said, sketching the characters on the table. I see, thank you, Maomao said. The name didn't sound much like something from the area of the imperial capital. If anything, it had the ring of something from Sheo or even farther west. Tell her I'm just a beautiful young lady whose only crime was trying to get back the bird I raised. Beautiful young lady. Everyone looked at Kulumu. Whatever else, she certainly had a high opinion of herself. At the moment, however, saying so only seemed likely to get them further off track. She maintains that the only thing she wants is her bird back and that she has no malicious intent of any kind. She has informed us in no uncertain terms that as such, we should return the animal to her and let her go, Taomei explained. Quite a demanding little so-and-so, Chu said. Maomao's thoughts were exactly as she spoke. Who cares, I raised that bird. Here, look at this, you can see it likes me. I'm not sure I can. The bird refused to look at Kulumu. Even at such close range, the creature appeared to be wearing a strange mask. I told you I need this. Kulumu put on a mask to complement her black outfit. Finally, the owl turned in her direction. Heh, see, I raised it from an egg, and I was dressed like this the whole time. Meaning it would respond to anybody dressed like that, not just you, Maomao observed. Kilumu's jaw practically hit the floor. No, it's true, you've got to believe me. How can you not trust such a sweet, innocent child? She looked like she might burst into tears. I even know its favorite food. My, but you are cute. It's chicken, Taomei said, taking a piece of meat in her chopsticks and holding it out to the owl. The owl hopped over and greedily pecked it up. Kulumu looked even more scandalized. It turns out you don't need black pajamas as long as you have food. Behind her mask, Kulumu let out what sounded like a choked sob. Basin, meanwhile, was just standing there, not saying a word. His mother was very capable. He looked a lot like Gaeshan, who stood beside him, clearly hoping nothing would happen. No, I raised it, it's mine, Kulumu insisted. And can you prove that to us? Maomao asked. I wish I could. Gosh, Miss Maomao, you are as ruthless with children as you are with everyone else, Chu said, enjoying the scene. Taomei held out more chicken. Chu seemed to be showing respect toward her mother-in-law, despite how freely she treated her father-in-law and brother-in-law. It's easy to be critical, but even children can start a fire. When you are sneaking around a powerful person's house, you're going to get in trouble, even if you're a kid, right? Maomao said. Fair enough. Chu took the chicken and was about to put it in her own mouth. Oh, Miss Chu, raw chicken is dangerous. Cook it first if you're going to eat it. Oops, my mistake. Chu might have been a gourmand with an iron stomach, but even she should probably avoid raw pork and chicken. I mean it. I raised it, I hatched the egg myself, Kulumu said. Is that so? And where did you get the egg? How did you hatch it? And how did the owl escape? Tell us that, Maomao asked. Kulumu took another great sniff, then started to talk. The egg, I got it from someone, this hunter who was friends with my dad. He said he didn't need it, but my dad didn't want to buy it. A hunter? Yeah, he was out hawking and he found it in this nest, so he brought it back with him. He thought my dad could hatch it and raise it to sell to some rich guy. Ah, and this bird had been what emerged. How did you hatch the egg then? Dad always keeps the room nice and warm. He uses plenty of fuel, and if it gets too hot we open the window. About 5 times a day he flips the eggs. I couldn't use any fuel though, so I kept it tucked close to me. You know, like the way a mother bird might. It hatched after about 5 days. I am sure she is right. Duck eggs are hatched the same way, Basin volunteered. He ought to know. He had looked after those ducks for a long enough time. Maomao was only vaguely familiar with methods of hatching eggs, but it sounded about right. This time Basin turned to Maomao. Well, what do you think? I think it sounds plausible. It is too detailed to be a story she concocted on the spot. Agreed. It is interesting to find out ducks and owls are hatched the same way. Interesting, but unfortunately for Basin it was irrelevant. Why was he so infatuated with ducks these days anyway? Yes, it is all basically plausible, but something still nagged at her. So you raised this owl with the intention to sell it? No, I thought not. Maomao plucked a handful of Kulumu's black outfit. You were hoping to return it to the wild, weren't you? After a second, Kulumu replied, yeah. I even taught it how to catch mice and bugs so it could hunt for itself. But then it was sold out from under you. Yeah, by my stupid dad. She clenched her fists. When he saw its unusual face and funny color, he waited until I was out somewhere and he sold it. He never even asked me. I didn't have a mate for it, so I was going to let it go back to the woods. That was the whole point of this suffocating costume. Kulumu was obviously furious, but it was hardly an unusual story. In Lee, the head of the household was generally entitled to do as he wished with the possessions of the women and children. I guess maybe it would be more surprising if you lived somewhere women were in a stronger position, Maomao thought. Daughters were commonly treated as tools to be used in political marriages, or as a way to gain a dowry. Selling a girl to the pleasure quarter was in essence much the same thing, I understand. Perhaps I could ask you a few questions while I get my thoughts in order. These questions are based entirely on my assumptions, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Kulumu sniffed and nodded. Your father isn't a falconer himself, but makes his money domesticating hawks and other unusual birds, and selling them to wealthy people, is that right? Kulumu nodded.